Hey there, Russ here. Welcome back to the shop. First off, let me tell you that I'm in my shop 7 days a week, pretty much, at least for a few hours. And so, if you're watching any of my videos, even if it's a year old, or if you have thoughts that you want to ask me about, just send me a comment on one of my videos. Chances are I'll probably see it and answer you within minutes, almost inevitably in less than an hour. But so you can get actually pretty fast response compared to most YouTubers, where I've seen some of them take days before they answer. So anyway, just a thought. I'm always here. So if you want to take some time and visit by the shop through a comment, you're welcome to do that and talk about anything you want to talk about. So I'll be here if you need something. Anyway, today I want to talk about shop vac centralized, central shop vac system and the design of it. The way everybody does it now, as far as I'm concerned, is really not the best way to do it. And it's amazing how everybody does it. And I think it's because you see one person do it, then all of a sudden the next one tries to do the same thing. So let's talk about some of the things that you don't want to do and why you don't want to do them when you design a central system. First off, a central system. I don't use one here in my shop. I have several shop vacs in here and dust collectors, and a lot of them are hooked up on only one machine or two machines only. And that dust collector, I decentralized everything. Slow and expensive channel. Go watch some of his stuff and you'll see. Now there's a guy that separates all his that. He has a lot of shop vacs. So anyway, so on a central vac system, the normal setup is you have your shop vac here. Then you run a hose over to your cyclone or theme baffle. And from there it comes out and it tees off and goes to all these different machines. And each one of them has a blast gate right at the machine. That's a normal setup. The problem is that actually I'm going to show you why that's really not a very good design at all. They talk about watch out for 90 degrees and all that, but actually doing the 90 degree is not a big deal if you're running a very short run. And you'll see that I can actually use 90s in mine if I want to, and it's not going to affect it near as much as it would if you're trying to do that on a big system like this. And the idea is that there is three things that you want to do differently than what a normal system is. First and foremost is the location of the air filter itself. On shop vac systems, that whole shop vac, let's take a moment, let's talk about the shop vac itself. The shop vac inherently from the factory is a multitasker. And don't get me wrong, I love multitaskers, as you know. But if you really wanted to be an efficient shop vac system, centralize it, the shop vac is not an efficient way of doing it. It does both dry debris and wet. It'll suck up water in that. The problem is it doesn't do either one at its peak efficiency. There's a trade-off by being able to do both. If you're never going to use it for water, you might as well change it. Don't leave it as a factory shop vac. No big deal. I've never used my shop vac as a shop vac for water, I think, since I've been using them 40 years now, probably. And I've never used it for water. I've always had a sump pump or a handheld drill operated pump with hoses in that. Those work a lot better than the shop vac for most everything. So a wet dry shop vac is nice, but if you're going to use it in the shop, let's make it efficient. That's the first thing. So the three things you need to do of the way they design the shop vac. The first one that we're going to talk about is the air filter location itself. They put it right here in the shop vac. And the air filter is on the vacuum side. Well, they do that because that way it's right there and it's all self-contained. What I'm telling you is take it out of that shop vac, out of the shop vac itself, and do away with vacuum on shop vac, any kind of filter, paper filter on the vacuum side altogether. And put it on the outlet side of your shop vac. Now, I want to clarify here. There are some shop vacs that use the same air coming in on the shop vac, and they blow part of it through the motor to cool the motor down. Most of your bigger units, and so you want to make sure that yours doesn't do that way. You want that separate, where the airflow through the motor is separate from the airflow for the shop vac airflow. And that way, all that debris is not going up through the motor. That you don't want to do. It obviously would be very bad. Now I have a very small shop vac, and usually it's the very small ones that have that problem. And there's no doubt about it that everything that goes into that shop vac, if I don't vacuum it, clean the air through an air filter on the vacuum side, all that debris that makes it there is going to go right through the motor. Not good. So that one, I have to keep a filter on the vacuum side. Another story, I'm actually using that on my miter saw, that particular one, and we'll talk about that at a later date about how to deal with it. Right now, most shop vacs, they're separate. The cooling fan for your motor is separate from the airflow of the shop vac itself. And that's very important that it does that. So that when you move that air filter out of here, the only place all that fine dust is going is through the squirrel cage. And honestly, that stuff is small enough and it's moving, travel enough that you're not going to damage your blade on that. And don't worry about it. It's not going to build up or any of that. By the time anything happens to that squirrel cage fan from very fine sawdust that's going in there, that motor will be long dead for other reasons, I'm sure. So don't worry about it. I don't think you're even going to shorten the life of it, quite frankly, in my opinion. So put your filter on the outlet side. So down here is where, let's say this is my vacuum source on my system. I put a box, I build a box here, get your filters up higher, have a catch basin area in it so that when dust comes in out of the shop vac and comes into the filter box, it can filter down and fall down into the bottom box or blow up into the filter. But if you blow the filter with an air hose, it'll knock all that loose and fall down into the basin so that you can clean the basin out without having to change the filter quite as often by cleaning it every now and then by reverse flowing the air through it. And that really helps keep it clean. And that's really all there is to the air filter, the final air filtration side. Any kind of decent filter, even a furnace filter, they'll do the job. Just make sure it's big enough to control the amount of volume you want, and make sure you don't get chintzy on the size of that box, because when that air comes out under pressure, you want that pressure to dissipate as fast as you can, and make sure that that box isn't building pressure itself so much that the air can flow through. So keep that in mind when you do it. Be generous on the size of your box. And as far as the rest of it, the other thing they tell you is put your blast gates right at your machines, and that's not the thing to do. Excuse me. No, I'm not going to edit that out. As far as the blast gates go, they affect the size of the vacuum chamber itself. When I did my last shop vac and I moved it and I revamped it, one thing I did is I had a 25-gallon container on the shop vac, and I cut the bottom of that off. I cut 2/3 of that off, made that chamber much, much smaller, and it greatly increased the volume efficiency of when it's sucking. And so by taking some of that chamber away, the smaller your chamber is, the better off you are. Well, that holds true for all your piping too. If you got a lot of ductwork going to a lot of different machines, if you have all that piping that has to carry the vacuum, whenever you turn the vacuum system on and all your blast gates are right at the machines, then all of these pipes are all filled with vacuum. That affects the efficiency of your vacuum, believe it or not. It just does. So anytime if you, instead of putting all your blast gates out here at the machine, bring all your blast gates to a central location to go out to each machine from there. And you say, oh man, I want that blast gate right at the machine, so it's right there and turn it on and off. Fine. You want to be lazy that way and you put them there? You can. But it does cut down the efficiency of what you have. That's not near as important as the last thing that you have to do if you want this system to be correct. And it's the other thing that everybody tells you to do that is wrong. And that is, they tell you to put that cyclone right here next to that vacuum source. And that is not the place you want that. What I would do is use smaller vacuum cyclones or theme baffles and make them individually for each machine. And the size of the collection bucket will be dictated by what that machine is outputting. I'm going to use a much bigger bucket on my planer for the collection bucket than I do for my table saw or my bandsaw. That's a much finer dust coming off of those. So that one doesn't need as big a dust collection. Now, the turbulent area, the cyclone or the theme baffle area, those can all be the same size. And probably a 1 gallon, 2 gallon bucket is more than enough size to build the top half of a theme baffle. A theme baffle on a machine. You don't need a real big chamber. You have your pipes coming in, one in the top and one from the side. All of that, the size of that isn't so critical. You just want to get that circular motion going so that it throws all the dust down and away from where the air is continuing on. So the bucket down below, you want it to not get full too fast. Like if on a planer, obviously you need a 15-gallon bucket as opposed to at the table saw, probably a 2-gallon bucket is more than enough. The smaller that bucket is, the more efficient the system's going to be while it's drawing the vacuum through that one machine. So take your theme baffle and your cyclone, build them and put them individually right by the machine. So when you're at the machine, that's where your bucket is. And I grab them and dump them. I would grab it and dump it when I'm using it every now and then. And if it starts to get full, you'll be able to tell. But it's easy to change if you use the easy change bucket system like what you've seen on a lot of mine. If you go look at some of my other videos, you'll see how I have the bucket just sets in there. And if you set this up so that your blast gates are all at one central location, then the only one that has vacuum to it as far as the machine goes would be where that blast gate is. So you should take your blast gate and rather than putting it right at the machine, bring them to a central location and put it on the hub so that only one of your runs has the vacuum to it when you turn it on. For example, I have my vacuum source here, I have my central blast gate right here, and I make a run from the blast gate hub to each of these machines. And then when I turn this to either or any of these blast gates, the only place you're going to have vacuum on the system is in this hose coming from the vacuum source up to the center, and whichever machine is open, that's going to have the vacuum in it. These other three will just be at atmospheric pressure. So this amount of efficiency is going to be better because the only vacuum there is, the vacuum chamber is going to be much smaller with just the vacuum here than when it's in all of these pipes. And that's the key behind centralizing your blast gate. The more centralized you can make this, the better off you are. Yes, that means that you have to go there to change it every time rather than at the machine. But in all reality, life is trade-offs. And quite honestly, at least then, you're not leaving a blast gate open when you're trying to use another machine, because that is just as frustrating. So keep that in mind. And always make sure that if you centralize it, keep your runs as simple as you can from this central location. You can be pretty efficient. And if you have to use a 90 somewhere one time, it's not going to be a big deal because you don't have all these elbows and everything going in all these different, and Y's going in all these different places. And the amount of vacuum is much, much less. So that's the whole thing in a nutshell. 3 things they're telling you wrong. Take your air filter out of your chamber. Make this chamber as small as you can right at the shop vac. Cut it down if you can. If you're not going to use it for a wet vac, just cut it down. That makes a big difference. I did on that one that I did here. And if you look at my past video, you'll see it. But take that air filter out of the vacuum side. Move those cyclones to within a foot of the machine and move your blast gates to a central location so that only one machine has vacuum straight to it from the vacuum source. Those 3 things will make you a much, much better and more efficient shop vac system. If you have any comments about this, or you don't understand something I'm talking about here, or you have a suggestion of how to make it even better, leave it in the comments. Believe me, we all want to know about it. If you like this video or you learned something here, hit that like button. It always helps. If you hit the dislike, leave me a message. Tell me what I'm doing that made you do that. It's not a problem. Just let me know so I know not to do it. Most importantly, though, please come back again because I'm nowhere near done. Oh, by the way, before you go, I should also say I've got a lot of videos out there about a lot of different subjects. if you watch any of my videos at any time, you want to leave a comment, I'm almost always in my shop pretty much 7 days a week, at least for a couple hours. And chances, if you leave me a comment, we can have a 10-minute conversation right then if you want. Chances are I'll usually respond to those pretty quick when I get those as I'm out here in the shop. I'm always watching my YouTube comments things, see if I'm getting any. So you want to stop by and visit for a minute anytime during the day? Come on by, leave a comment. Chances are I'll answer you right away. So I want to thank you. And please do come back again. We'll see you again soon.